Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria, Digital Health Strategy Associate at Bayer G4A. On behalf of the team, we would like to welcome you to our Pitch Club event today. So we created this event to give for digital startup an opportunity to pitch their solutions to relevant industry professionals, but also to gain insights from our jury members and get the exposure they need to raise their company's profile. We do have an audience Q&A at the end of the session, so please feel free to type your questions in the comment section, and we'll get to those at the end of the event on a first come, first serve basis. Please also remember to include the name of the company so that we can directly ask the right questions to the right startups. Now I would like to introduce our jury panel. So this year we will have Mali Baum, the CEO and founder of W Launch. Thank you, Mali, for joining. So W Launch is one of the biggest and most influential tech networks in Germany, and she also is the founder of Magda Group. We also have as a jury member Anne-Catherine Vega. So she's the Senior Insights Manager at Flying Health. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, Maria Bitkovic, CEO of Women's of Wearables. With that said, let's kick off the Pitch Club event. So today we'll have 4 startups pitching, and I would like to welcome our first startup, Plena. So Lorena and Giovanna, please share your screen and introduce your company. You will have 3 minutes to pitch, and I hand over the stage to you.
So hi, everyone. We are the co-founders of Plena, the first femtech that provides lifetime care to women in Latam. I am Lore. I can't seem to, perfect. I am Lore. I majored in business, and after graduation, I worked for 3 years at Bain & Company. That is where I met Gio. I then worked at a healthcare startup in Mexico prior to doing my MBA at Stanford.
And I am Gio. I'm a biomedical engineer that launched a medical healthcare startup after graduation. Shortly after, I went into consulting, then worked at a healthcare startup in Mexico and in impact investing. When I got to Harvard for my MBA, I reached out to Lore to start Plena.
We are looking to solve 4 main problems in the market. The first one is that women's health is surrounded by strong taboos that limit access to care. The second one is that our healthcare system is still based on recommendations, where 60% of women switch up to 3 times providers before finding the one that makes them feel comfortable. The third one is that the healthcare system is extremely polarized, with an underfunded public sector that provides low quality services, opposed to a private offering that is not only expensive, but also has little tech adoption. Finally, the private system is in silos, where there are no providers that offer really comprehensive diagnostics for women. We aim to serve middle and upper middle income women between 18 to 35 years old. And only in Mexico, this segment comprises 12 million women and a potential market close to $7 billion.
At Plena, we are reimagining women's care through a technology-infused, highly branded experience and best-in-class care. We're doing it in 3 different ways. The first one is by building a powerful brand that delivers trustworthy, easy-to-digest information and by connecting with our community. Second is with our hybrid and comprehensive approach to care. And lastly, with our tech-first approach by allowing us to increase usability and engagement. So we successfully opened our in-person location in April and expanded our virtual services by August. Now we offer gynecology, nutrition, mental health, primary care, and more. We operate as a fee-per-service model with tickets ranging from $15 to $300 and have booked more than 4,600 appointments with an NPS of 96. We will now add a subscription model by the end of the year. It will include access to different services and a gamified experience to improve patient habits. Our subscription will be accompanied by a patient portal where women can fill out their medical records, book appointments, and interact with their different care providers.
Now, what makes us different? We offer a unique patient experience, a care model that allows us to treat women in the comfort of their houses or come in person if needed, a comprehensive care approach that treats women as a whole and not the sum of its parts, and finally, with a data-driven platform that allows us to provide personalized health recommendations to our patients. We have a team of 35 rock stars divided into the medical team, product, tech, and support functions.
And our vision for Plena is to become the largest women health provider in LATAM by 2025. Our plan is to now iterate our different specialties in a subscription model in order to treat chronic conditions like PCOS. Next year, we plan on launching maternity and menopause programs to treat the full cycle of women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorena and Giovanna. So now we have the 10 minutes for questions and feedbacks from the jury. And for the audience, you can also type your questions in the comments and we will get to them to the end.
Can I start? I have a question.
Yeah. Sure, go on.
Laura, Giovanna, very great pitch, great idea. I'm a big fan of women's health, so you'll always get a plus from me for whatever you do in this space. I'm curious a bit to hear about a gamified platform that you mentioned. How do you plan to execute on that? And also, I think I've seen in one of the slides that to each patient and customer, you plan to provide highly branded experience. Did you perhaps think highly personalized experience, or what do you mean by branded?
Perfect. Yeah. So when we talk about gamify experience, we know we want to get a woman to be more engaged with her health, and we've seen how providing more data to them and getting historic data and tracking it while they experience the app has always been gratified in other areas of their health. So what we want to do is for them to have, we call it a life plan with Plena, where they can tell us how they perceive their health month to month. And we will make some dashboards with her and have our primary care provider help them out to identify and channel them to the different specialties we have in order for them to keep improving the different aspects of their life in their Plena's life plan, as we call it.
I think in terms of the gamified experience, it's similar to what other apps do, where they gain points and recognition depending on what the progress that they've done with their health in the different aspects. So nutrition, for example, and they're going to be like achieving certain badges, et cetera, depending on the type of progress that they make. The second piece, in terms of the highly branded experience, that we do via our in-person location in a very tangible way. So the whole experience of coming to Casa Plena, which that's their name of our in-person location, the whole design has a very patient-centric approach. The waiting room doesn't feel like a waiting room. It feels kind of like home. All the different examination rooms are very branded, so the patient really likes the experience because it's very nice, and the doctors are all like women doctors, and there's just a lot of details that make the experience very personalized and very different to going to a regular doctor's office, which is in a hospital tower, etc. Also in the virtual services, there's also the whole kind of background. All are women doctors, young doctors that are very approachable. They have the same kind of, I wouldn't say script, but the same kind of guidelines of how to treat patients, how to approach them, how to speak to them, how to make this very a close, I guess, a voice to them. So all of that makes kind of the patient have the same experience across the different services in Plena.
Thank you for asking.
That sounds actually very interesting, and I would be interested in you if you also have an onboarding process or anything like that for the doctors you have on your platform, or how you set up the whole experience, so to say.
Yeah, I think specifically for the in-person location, we have a playbook of how we're going to execute once we expand physically. For the virtual services, we have a playbook of how to onboard, but I think that goes before like to the recruiting process. So it's like, since the recruiting process, we know what we're looking for. We're looking for young women that have experience, but that are super approachable, that are very patient-centric, that have this warmth towards patients. And then we have onboarding, depending on the type of specialty. So it can be gynecology, psychology, nutrition. There's a specific onboarding plan and process for each of them. There's a doctor that accompanies them kind of through the onboarding process. And first, obviously, the new doctor kind of sees the older, more experienced doctor, and then they switch, and then they provide feedback. And I mean, we only have 6 months of like actual full operation, so that's been kind of going month by month. And we've been, as we add on specialties, the plan is to continue doing these playbooks for the different specialties.
I have a tricky question, just from the investment perspective. You mentioned location and you mentioned SaaS. Can you explain how and why it's going together, at least on the level of, very early and growth? Because probably you will need much more capital to really drive both of them. It's like two business models in parallel. So is it your decision, or there is something behind that to go for location and digital product in parallel?
Yes, good question, Ali. So what we thought about in order to provide the best experience in Plena was that we needed to have an in-person location, mainly for gynecology, and to build loyalty with our patients. In Mexico, virtual health is difficult to be approached by itself. So by adding Casa Plena, or the in-person component, we could leverage like patients' loyalty in the in-person location and use it as a testing hub to be able to launch different innovative bets in the region. So we decided to first prove that we had traction in the in-person component, and after that prove that we could test and find product market fit in the virtual aspect of it. We don't operate as a SaaS specifically. We hire the doctors that are also in our virtual platform, and they are able to do both in-person or virtual if they're gynecology, or only virtual if they're the other services we provide. But once we prove that we have this hybrid model, that women can go both in person and virtually for care, that's where we want to expand. So that's how we thought about it initially. And that's the next year or so will be all about proving the subscription model, launching it. And after we find traction there, we're going to be able to launch, to scale the whole Plena model as we see it. I don't know if this answers your question.
And just very, very briefly before we proceed to the next startup, what was your ask in the pitch? Like, are you fundraising? How much you are raising? I maybe I missed that part.
To be honest, we closed our seed round 3 weeks ago. But I mean, we've been having a ton of conversations with Bayer Mexico, and we were with them in an accelerator program. So they proposed to pitch today because of the mentorship and kind of that accompaniment in terms of the expertise in the healthcare space. So that's pretty much why we were here.
Great. Well, if you need some press coverage, you can always reach out to me. I write for Forbes, so feel free to do so.
Thank you. That would be super helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Awesome. Any last questions from you, or?
If we have time for a quick one, I would have
you
one
can
more.
Go forward.
I was actually wondering, because the problems are, I think, in every country kind of the same. So I was wondering if you are also looking at other countries.
We are. We are looking into Spanish-speaking Latam. That's our next. I mean, there's a bunch of countries, and in total, it makes up a fairly good sizable market. I think we have a long way to go in Mexico, but we're looking into regulatory and kind of a per country, which aren't in the virtual space, which aren't as complex as other ones. So it's we figure that it's gonna be feasible to go to other countries, potentially next year at the end of next year.
And can I just ask very, very briefly before we finish, how are you different to some competitors in the market? I know that in the US, Kindbody, Tia Clinic operate on a fairly similar business model and with a similar approach. Like, what is some unique selling proposition that you have compared to them?
Yeah, I think in terms of, I mean, Tia definitely is an inspiration to us, Kindbody as well. I think the difference is we don't right now we're treating younger women. So we're more in the Tia approach. We're not doing any fertility. There's nothing of that sort in Mexico. So we're doing that whole kind of detachment of the doctor and making it a brand. We're doing the whole hybrid model, which is completely kind of different to what exists, because we're really trying to leverage as much as we can virtual care in gynecology and in other specialties as well. And I think finally the whole comprehensive model of treating women more as a whole and more holistically, that's something that doesn't happen in Mexico. You have to go to like all the different specialists and they don't communicate with each other. And for us, that's really important, especially in chronic conditions like polyovaric syndrome or maternity, for example. Once we open that vertical, which we're not there yet, but we'll open it eventually, you need a full set of specialists guiding you through that journey, menopause as well, that there's nothing of that sort right now. So really trying to innovate in all of these aspects, leveraging as much as we can the virtual component.
Amazing. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much to both of you for presenting. Thank you. So now let's move on, and I would like to introduce the second company that we'll be pitching, Addix. So yeah, amazing. So Sandra, please share your screen and introduce yourself. As you know, you have 3 minutes to pitch, and then we'll have the Q&A from our juries.
Yes, just give me a second here, sorry. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can go forward.
Perfect. Okay, I'll start right away. Nice to be here. Thank you, everyone. So, my mother began her Alzheimer's investigation almost a year ago, and we're still not even halfway through the process. For millions of individuals around the world, it is just as inefficient and many times also too expensive to obtain a diagnosis. We have the technology to change this, but we just need to utilize it. My name is Sandra Shalma, and today I will introduce you to Addix, a novel screening tool for early detection of Alzheimer's disease. So the greatest challenge behind Alzheimer's disease has been identified as costly and time-consuming diagnostic procedures. The cost globally is estimated to be over 250 billion euros per year. It takes 5 hours on average to diagnose a patient and can cost up to 10,000 euros. As a result, millions of people are left undiagnosed. Addix has found and developed a solution. We have a non-invasive screening tool that using machine learning-based technology, allowing clinicians and patients to merely scan facial images for analysis and receive results within minutes by simply using a smartphone. A one-of-its-kind patented solution. The benefits of getting an early screening would not only serve the healthcare sectors and net savings and allow more patients to be screened, most importantly, it will accelerate the advancements of research by speeding up the patient recruitments for pharmaceutical clinical trials. Currently, there are no existing low-cost biomarker tools in the market. The most common screening measures used today, such as MRI and PET scans, they don't compete with the advantages that Addix offers in terms of cost efficiency, scalability, and the non-invasive applicability. Our upcoming milestones aims to train and validate our product in clinical study collaborations before we continue with submission for regulatory approval to then finalize our Addix solution and go to market. With 150 million patients in need of screening for pharmaceutical clinical trials today, The total available market would be 7.5 billion euros in high-income countries. A conservative estimation of 5% market share would result in 375 million euros. Our business models aim to work with key opinion leaders to enter, firstly, the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries for faster screening of patients. Further on, we also plan to market for direct contact with the public. And our outstanding team at ADDX consists of myself as the CEO, our machine learning expert, Philip Peters, and our app developer, Jacob Gelberg, and strategy officer, Jacob Arnstein. So please get in touch today and work with us on the future diagnostics. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the pitch, Sandra. And now let's turn to the jury for questions and feedbacks.
Sandra, a great pitch. I would love to ask you two questions that maybe it will elaborate more information. Can you simplify that and mention what is your business model exactly?
So our business model, we are firstly going to focus on working with the pharmaceutical industry. That will be our gateway entry to training our model with further collection of data, as well as partnering and working with them for administration of our product. So that will be our first and foremost customer segment. We also will work with entering the hospital care specialist in dementia diagnostic clinic centers for first contact with patient screening.
Thank you.
I would be interested to understand your solution a bit more. So could you perhaps elaborate a bit more how it works and what parameters you are taking in and what measurements?
Yes, of course. So we've developed this machine learning model that detects microscopic changes through computer vision technology. So what it does is that it actually collects facial images of the user, sent to our server for analytic purposes, which is then anonymized due to GDPR compliances. So the point is that this is going to go fast. So you have this technology that can send and analyze quickly through the machine learning trained model, and the user will receive a prognosis in the app. So what it does is that it actually detects differences in facial features. For example, cerebral blood flow has been associated with the changes in cerebral blood flow has been associated with advancements and developments of Alzheimer's disease, and these changes can actually be observed using optical methods that has been shown in research. Facial expressions can also be analyzed and diagnosed for mild cognitive impairment, for example, with using computer vision techniques. And genetic makeup is also correlated to the development of Alzheimer's disease, which can also be seen in facial features. So these are all small parameters that can be detected using this technology that we've applied on a smartphone app now.
And Sandra, what is the time period during which you will measure these time features, right? Because for certain, especially for some digital biomarkers, it takes significant amount of time to actually figure out what's the change and to identify when to alert the patient or future patient or the healthcare professional. How will that part work? Like, what's the time frame period during which you measure this, and what does happen then? Does the app or the platform or whatever you want to call it, tool, alert the patient and the doctor? How does that work?
Yes. So what we saw in our pilot study was actually that you can receive the results within 5 to 10 minutes. So these new technologies, if we further train them, they can go really fast. So that is something that we're hopeful with further developing this model and seeing new results. What we have applied on this smartphone app is that you get a prognosis for a probability of developing Alzheimer's disease, whether it is in the near future or in the further on future. Studies have shown that you can actually detect Alzheimer's, or that the development of Alzheimer's disease is a progression between 15 to 20 years prior to the diagnosis, or the symptoms actually start to appear. And we actually are testing this application and system in our model also. So let's say that you get a prognosis that you have a possibility of developing Alzheimer's. You get a prognosis on your phone, and then it will be, this is something that we will implement further on when we further train our system, is to directly connect the patient with the nearest by specialist. So that's the plan.
Thank you.
Perhaps one additional question to the one before. So you want to develop it as a patient-centric app, right? So the doctor only comes in at the point when the patient already has kind of the diagnosis or already has the indication for Alzheimer's, right? Or can it also be like a prescription app by the doctor or anything like that?
We actually see a lot of possibilities in this aspect. So what we will start with doing is the B2B business model, entering the pharmaceutical industry that are doing these massive patient recruitment processes. They will need to screen patients faster. And today, patients are undergoing several assessment tests, instruments that are expensive, and the process is really long. So that's our first step, to have the patients, the industries that are screening for Alzheimer's disease to use our tool to reduce the cost and the time it takes to diagnose a patient. That will save them a lot of time and financial capital, basically. So that's our first step. We will also work with hospitals. We also plan to work with hospitals and specialty clinics, like I mentioned before, as a first initial meeting with the patient. So let's say that a patient is coming into the doctor's office and complaining about memory loss or whatever they might have cognitive decline within. So the doctor will have this tool then, will have access to this tool for early screening. So instead of going through all these methods and tests, they would have a quicker prognosis for the ultimate test to be done. So referral to the right clinicians, etc. So that's why we need to further develop that segment first before we can actually go to commercializing the product to the public, considering that the doctors need to be on board. Everything is these processes are very long within these industries, so we need to consider that also. Did I answer your question?
Yes. For me, I'm all clear. Yeah. No more questions from my end.
I was only wondering, what market are you looking at? Is it the German market, or because I think you didn't mention a target market, so to say?
No. So first, we will aim to enter the Swedish market. We're a Swedish-based company, so that will be our primary market. But we also intend to expand throughout Europe and the US. We are envisioning that this tool will actually be available in a global market eventually, considering countries that are underdeveloped. They don't have access to healthcare. They don't have access to nearby clinicians or doctors for help. If we can actually distribute this product globally, then I think millions of people will be helped, will understand what the cognitive decline that they're experiencing are due to. So we're initially entering the Swedish market for further progress.
Great. Any further questions?
Do we have time for one?
You have time for one. Go on.
Sandra, I would love to ask you about the financial situation. What do you need? Where are you in the product development, in the same time on the fundraising? Where are you right now?
As of today, we're actually self-funded. So bootstrapping, basically. We are in a pre-seed phase. We have our minimum viable product that we have on the app. We've tried and we've trained the machine learning model, and we applied it to the app application, to the smartphone application. And we are about to start collecting more data through collaborations in clinical trials or studies. So that is where we are right now, and we will begin fundraising, or we're pre-seed fundraising stage.
Do you have some kind of approximate amount of funding you are planning to raise for your next upcoming round?
Yes, 2 million euros for studies and R&D.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much for your pitch, Sandra, and thank you to the juries for their question. So before moving on to the audience, don't hesitate to send the questions on the comments tab, and then we'll reply to those at the end during the Q&A session for the audience specifically. So now I'd like to welcome our third company, AI for Medicine. So Dietmar, you know the drill, 3 minutes to pitch. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. What if we could finally use technology to take prevention to a completely new level? I'm Dietmar Frey for AI for Medicine. I've been working for more than 15 years at the Charité, and I've seen enough suffering. So now we want to go the next step and move beyond treatment of acute patients, but rather save them from entering the hospital in the first place. What is the problem? Currently, there's a lot of one-size-fits-all strategies, and prevention is failing. Chronic diseases are on the rise, as you all know, and hospitalizations increase, resulting in enormous suffering and costs. And digital health solutions do not address the need for personalized user engagement. Our solution...
Sorry to stop you. Excuse me. We actually are not seeing your slide so far.
Oh.
So maybe check. Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you in the middle.
Oh, that's good. So maybe because Bharat told me that you would see them.
I don't see. I saw the loading.
Okay, just I'm resharing them.
Thank you.
Can you see them now?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
So this was the first, this was the second about the problem, and this is the solution. So we are bringing personalized prevention based on AI and combine our expertise from the clinic with machine learning and deep learning expertise. With that, we reduce chronic diseases and hospitalizations, leading to better quality of life and lower costs. And we are addressing the unmet need of chronic disease patients. How are we doing that? We put that in a product, the Health Advisor, that is empowering patients to actually change behavior and reduce their chronic disease risk, both for stroke and cardiovascular disease. How is that working? We have individual AI-based prediction of risk based on individual features and showing this effect of behavior change for motivation. So we're not only assessing risk, but translate this risk into individualized and prioritized intervention schemes. We can continuously synchronize the data and also have been synchronizing data with health insurance to actually complement the data that the patient is gathering. We need to gratify and gamify the app, and then we can also have an overview of the personal development to share with a healthcare professional. The market is huge, of course, so we have a very, very big market, and the serviceable obtainable market is around 3 billion euro. This is both for the US and the European Union. How do we go to market? We mainly address B2B to C by addressing insurance companies, first in the DACH region, and then secondly in the European level. How do we do that? We actually perform stratification of patients, and then we can have a targeted rollout of the app to patients at risk. The average user fee would be around 180 euros per year, and we aim for having 27,000 patients and app users in the next 2 years. How we can do that? We have a great team combining clinical, medical knowledge and machine learning, deep learning expertise, and with a sales force. So our mission is delivering personalized prevention solutions to really improve quality of life. So join us, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you for the pitch. So now let's see whether the juries have questions.
Okay, question from me. If I understood correctly, your product will be an app that users will be able to use on a daily basis to track chronic conditions. And if I saw correctly on one of the slides, stroke and cardiovascular diseases are first diseases you will tackle. The part that I didn't understand was the business model, because in one part you mentioned that the fee for user will be around 180 euros per year. But if you plan to collaborate with insurance companies, will the app be integrated into the offering that they will charge the person that they're insuring? So something similar to Vitality here in the UK does with Apple. They're offering free Apple Watch through for any user that subscribes to Vitality insurance policy. How will that work? I didn't understand that part correctly.
Yes, thanks very much for this question. So I need to clarify here. So this is a B2B2C business model, and the user of the app will not be charged right now as it is on our business model for Germany. Mm-hmm. So the costs are covered by the health insurance, either by public health insurance through different schemes. There's different schemes in Germany, and also private health insurance where we have also rather developed talks with them. And we can say that they want to cover these costs for the individual patient. So they would buy a package of, let's say, 10,000 app users for their cohort, and then would roll it out. So the costs will not be incurred on the individual patient, at least for the first iteration in Germany and neighboring countries, if that answers your question.
Yes, okay.
Also, from my side, I will dive into the same topic just to make it more clear, because you said that you're working or worked in Charité for 15 years, and you probably know how difficult is the system. I would love you to convince us regarding this 27K users in the next few years that you want to achieve, or 2 years. Only because you said German market first, and then you know how much complicated is the system. So do you have any magic sauce how you build this for that scale?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's also a great question, of course, because it's really complicated. So we will not go through doctors' offices. Yes, we will not go through hospitals. We will go only in the first iteration through insurance, meaning public and private health insurance in Germany. So the first step would be, of course, that public or private health insurance. With private health insurance, we are, as I said, we are already in talks, and they they are probably willing to pay for a package about 5,000 to 10,000 patients, which would be great, which would also take us a long way already. And that would then be replicated in the same way. So our aim is actually to sell packages in the first place for first iterations, and then on a pay-per-use, maybe on the later stages. And that can be extended, of course. But we will not address doctors' offices. So my wife is a doctor as well. She has a clinic. So I actually know exactly how complicated it is. And I don't think there is a good opening to go individually to doctors' offices. So we decided to really go B2B, to C.
I totally
I have two
agree.
more. I have two more
Please.
questions. And Catherine, do you maybe want to jump in? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I wanted to ask about the solution. So if you have anything about the business model, go first.
My question was more around competitors, similar to what Molly said. Can be very hard market to enter, and there are probably some competitors, and I would be curious to hear, what's available out there already, how unique are you, and convinced that you can, penetrate quickly and penetrate well into the market, because especially with B2B business models and working with enterprises, sales cycles are very, very long. So number of 27,000 users is very optimistic, but once I think when you achieve that through B2B business model, everything else rolls much easier. Who are the competitors, Dietmar?
Yes, so I think the lead time, or I experienced the lead time, we are already 1 year in talks with this private health insurance. We're finalizing the talks hopefully in the next few months, and the medium lead time is around 1.5 to 2 years. Yes. So I know exactly what you're talking about. The main role model for us, to be honest, would be Omada Health from the United States, who are doing great disease management with diabetes patients. And of course, this business model of sharing saved costs, it's also a great business model, which we originally would like to have followed. But in Germany, it's a more complicated situation because there's not a lot of risk. Let's say they don't like to take risk in the health insurance, and there's also not the budget for doing a 2-year, 3-year project and then to share the safe costs. So we approach it differently, but actually what they do, Omada Health, accompanying patients to reduce hospitalizations, to actually reduce costs for the healthcare provider, is exactly what we are aiming for. And there is, of course, some competition in the market. There is some more researchy oriented risk analyses for stroke, for example, but there's no integrative and also continuously synchronized solution that is communicating with the health insurance and with the patient. I know it's a big ambition, but I'm really happy to take that on.
I would love to understand a bit more what patients you are actually targeting with the solution, because you said it's like a risk classification, right? So are you looking at patients who are already having a disease and looking for comorbidities, or is it not yet diagnosed patients?
So the main road we are taking is we do risk stratification for health insurance to look into their populations and identify patients at risk. And with these high-risk patients identified, we can target these patients with a rollout specifically tailored to their needs. So there's a 2-step process, which I didn't really put in the slides because it needs to be explained. So first we do machine learning-based stratification for risk, and then we identify these patients, and then we roll out targeted to these patients, the app. Of course, maybe an additional point, if you have already had a stroke or a heart attack, then of course, this is a big risk factor for having a second. So these patients can also then be included. Yes.
And one last question from me, very, very briefly. Where are you in your product development stage now? Like, how does that look like?
So we have the app ready to be rolled out, but right now only on iOS. because we focused on that, because of some things, also, of course, resources. It can be easily translated into the Android stuff. So this is maybe 4 to 8 weeks, which we envision. And we have the app ready to be rolled out. The thing is, again, many health insurances would like to have a solution that is integrated into their system. And so we didn't sign an NDA, but we had already a lot of experience of integrating our app into an existing health insurance solution, which could communicate then both ways, to the insurance, to the patient.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Perhaps only to understand it a bit better, what data are you currently using? So is it only insurance claim data, or is it also like data from wearables or something like that?
Yeah, I actually expected this question much sooner. So we are both using insurance claims data, which has a lot of variables, which is also, of course, a little bit biased sometimes towards maybe some endpoints. We're using wearable data, and we're using publicly available data, of course, for the different indications. And we have actually, the first model that we developed was developed on 400,000 patients, longitudinal patient data, which was really great to have.
If I would ask you, what do you need the most right now? What is it the biggest obstacle and the biggest support that you need right now?
Yeah, the biggest support would be probably to really reach out to many interested parties, to have a good structure, to have a company built up also focused on sales and distribution. Because I think we have great models, but the greatest model won't reach the patient if you don't have a structured process how to get there. And that's where we are really in need of support. So network, sales, outreach, that would be the most important things.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your pitch. Really interesting. I think now we can move forward to our last pitch. So war on cancer. Before having the last pitch, I would like to remind the audience, don't feel free to send your questions in the comments, and we will reply to those just after Sebastian's speech. So Sebastian, the floor is yours now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, hi, everybody. My name is Sebastian Hermelin. I'm one of the co-founders of War on Cancer. We're a patient-founded, patient-first community app for everyone affected by cancer. One of the biggest apps in the world for cancer patients. And just before I start, given that we have 3 minutes, just want to give you the idea of how we started War on Cancer. So 7 years ago, I was living in London, working in finance. My best friend that I lived with was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And he was given a chance of 60% of surviving. He was a very positive guy, so he was keen on surviving, let's put it like that. But as a best friend, I could only think of the risk of him actually not making it. His way of dealing with the cancer journey was sharing his story in a blog. It became one of the biggest blogs ever written by a cancer patient, so followed by close to 200,000 people. And there was 3 things that he learned from writing this. First of all, journaling actually helps you cope with cancer. Second of all, writing about what you're experiencing helps normalize the situation for everyone around you. So people such as me could focus more on supporting Fabian, treating him as a person, not as a patient. But thirdly, he experienced altruistic happiness. Tens of thousands of people reached out to him saying, "Thank you for being brave enough to share. This really helps." So with that in mind, I'll try to see if I can just switch the slide. So quickly, just to remind everyone how big cancer is. So roughly today, 20 million people are diagnosed yearly. This will grow by 50% up until the year 2040, where roughly 30 million people will be diagnosed. More people survive cancer today than ever before, and more people will survive cancer tomorrow than ever before as well. The problem is that 1 in 6 deaths can be attributed to cancer disease. There's 150 million people living as cancer patients today, at least if you ask them if they feel like patients. There's roughly $200 billion being spent on cancer research every year, and the economic burden of cancer, which is the cost of cancer research, the cost of cancer care, but also the loss of productivity, is estimated to be roughly $900 billion a year, which is close to 2% of world GDP. But what I want to share with you is that cancer is not only statistics and it's not just numbers, because cancer actually changes everything for the people that are affected. It affects your mental health, it affects your physical health, your social ability, your sense of self, your financial stability, your ability to provide, your perception of yourself, but most importantly, perhaps, others' perception of you. So the problem that we have defined after 7 years of working with this is that the major stakeholders in a cancer patient's life do a tremendous job in helping them thrive. The problem that cancer patients experience is the discrepancy between the responsibility of the stakeholders and what they expect. So just to put it into perspective, it's your social circle. When someone gets diagnosed with cancer, every single cancer patient thinks that their family and their friends will support them to the extent that they can. Now, everybody that has a close friend or a family member that has been diagnosed with cancer, they want to do everything to help them. So why does most cancer patients feel completely alone? Because you don't understand how to treat or how to support the cancer patients. It's the same thing with healthcare. They are responsible for your physical and mental health care. The expectation from patients is that they're in good hands. I'll probably just meet one doctor and they will help me thrive and hopefully survive as well. But the reality is that most cancer patients meet more than 10 doctors during their cancer journey, and they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, and they feel like a number in a statistic rather than a human being. When it comes to insurance, everybody is insured, and most people are insured, or everybody's not insured, but I think in most European countries you are. Most people are insured when you're healthy. So regardless of when you're sick, they will never cover for everything that you've lost. What about the years that you've lost in terms of career, etc., etc.? When it comes to pharma, Bayer, for example, you're responsible for providing life-saving drugs. But the problem for cancer patients is that even if you survive cancer, cancer changes everything. So that's not sort of the whole problem. When you look at research today, it's estimated that roughly 80% of all cancer patients could be diagnosed with a mental health issue. But only 3% of cancer patients feel that the healthcare system supports them to an extent that they can live a fully qualitative life. This is the problem that we're trying to solve. So the War on Cancer community, we built this with a sole purpose in mind. This is a place where people should feel welcome, where they can feel belongingness, where they can seek knowledge, get answers to the questions that nobody else is equipped to answer, and where you can also find meaning by contributing your data to relevant life science actors, but where you can also answer other people's questions. But this is a very boring slide, sorry for that. But you don't have to take my word for that it works. You can ask or sort of read what our members have to say. And it's pretty astonishing. We have tens of thousands of members saying that this has really saved their lives. So with 45,000 active members on the War on Cancer app, we're one of the largest potential patient data sources in the world, and this is just the beginning. Our members represent roughly 100 types of diagnoses around the world, and we represent actually more than 42 countries now, not 32 as stated here. Our main members, or most of our members, are allocated in the US and in the UK, obviously in the Nordics as well, because that's where we're located. We're targeting these markets because that's where it makes business sense to create a sustainable business, and then we want to reach every part of the world. Now, what do we do with this? What is the opportunity with creating one of the largest communities for cancer patients in the world? Well, it's data, and it's data for good. So what we have built is in-app target surveys. So we perform surveys and interviews, which is customized to the client needs. We work with the likes of Pfizer and AstraZeneca to capture patient insights generally. We can do standardized PRO surveys, but we also do them customized to the client needs. So the first study we ever did was with Pfizer in the US, and this was the response we got from delivering their report last month. So Rafael Herrera Lasso, the global marketing director, said, "A very fascinating journey, an amazing piece of work, fantastic presentation, leaves us wanting more." So our goal is to work with all pharmaceutical companies in the world that actually researches the oncology field in helping them capture patient insights. And yeah, that's it. We do a lot of other stuff as well, but that's the gist of it.
Thank you, Sebastian, for your pitch. Now let's see with the juries if there are any questions.
Sebastian, question. Sorry, Mali, do you want to start first? Are you on, Catherine? No. If I understand correctly, you are in an essence a community, right? A community-based app that provides support to the people that are using it.
Yes.
What is your ask here? Like, what's the next step for your business and for the community in terms of, are you raising funds? Are you looking for more partnerships? Like, what's the ask from the pitch, and also how is that tied maybe to the overall goal?
Yeah, so we've been focusing on creating patient value since day one. That's the only thing that drives me, to be honest. The only reason why we're putting on sort of the clothes of being a company is because we want to make this into the world's biggest sort of patient contributor in the world. We have raised $7 million up to date. We're going to raise another 15 million that we're raising right now. And our goal is to become the biggest patient community in the world by next year, with 250,000 members as patients active next year. Our goal is to become self-sustainable within 2 years, working with the top 20 pharma companies, helping them gain insights into the different target groups that they produce or where they deliver drugs, for example. So our main target and focus right now is to sell patient insights targeted towards sort of enabling Bayer, MSD, and BMS, etc., to understand unmet needs. What is the part of the market where you could do more? So that is what we're helping you with. So what we have that everybody wants is access to patients. We have access to patients that trust us, where they answer questions, where we don't have to give them sort of an Amazon check to answer questions, because we only take on projects where we can prove that the partners we work with actually do what's good for patients. So that's generally our goal.
When you say selling patients' data, that has to be phrased in general, as an ex-lawyer, has to be phrased very, very carefully.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be using the wording that you need to make sure.
Yeah, so let me explain what I say by selling patient data. So we don't sell anything when it comes to just you. When you are onboarded to the platform, we don't take any data. We don't do anything with the data except for using it to create a better platform. In every instance where we have a partner, we expect from you to sign an explicit consent. So we have a part of the app where you can contribute to cancer research, essentially. So if Bayer were to do a patient unmet needs survey towards a targeted group of members on our app, we would create that with you. We would send it out to the people of relevance. And then we would ask them, would you want to do this together with us and together with Bayer? And this is Bayer's intention. And this is the only purpose where they can use the data. And they have to sign this explicitly. We're HIPAA compliant. We're GDPR compliant. So we would never, like, our worst nightmare is to be compared to Cambridge Analytica, for example. So we only take on projects where we actually do something good. And we always ask for explicit consent for every instance where we collect data that we use together with a partner.
Do patients also have the option to share other information, like other documents they can basically share with a certain research purpose? For example, doctor's letters or information.
Yeah, so Ann-Katrin, sorry, I didn't hear your question because I think my internet is quite bad.
I can repeat it.
Yeah, could you, please? Yeah.
Yeah. My question was if there is an option for patients to share other data. Like you said, they can share it with the questionnaires you are doing, but is there also an option to, for example, share lab values or
Yeah, so sorry, I
diagnostic
still didn't hear your
parameters?
question, but I think I can elaborate on that. So no, we only enable patients to share data with the industry if we have a partner and if we have an explicit use of that data. We don't collect data for any other purposes. And that's the only way we can start doing this, because the only thing we have is trust. That's the only value we can give to our members, that they can trust us. So there would be no point in collecting data because we think it could be valuable in the future. That's not the kind of business that we want to run. What we're building here is the world's largest patient community, where patients are willing to share data. And that's an opportunity for pharmaceutical companies to capture data together with us, together with patients. So this is not in any way like IQVIA. For example, you know IQVIA, right? This is not like going into quality registrars, collecting data from different sources. This is collecting data from one source, from the patients, the most important source, if you ask me. And you do it with consenting members of War on Cancer. You do it with people that want to contribute, that want to share, and that wants to work with you and with us. So in a sense, I would say that we bridge the gap between patients and between the life science sector, if that makes sense.
Sebastian, you mentioned two things, also coming from a big background from ecosystem building and network. You mentioned that this is your superpower, and I agree. But can you elaborate more a bit how you build that, or how you're going to build it? In a sense, I would like to understand how you're really showing your superpower of getting access, and people really gain the trust and joining this network.
Yeah, so again, sorry, I heard half of your question, but I'm assuming that you're asking like how we're able to build like a community, right?
How you're able to build a community, and how you're going to maintain that or build that into a significant numbers.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear your question. This is my internet is so bad. But essentially what I think it has enabled us to build a community is that we are patient first, and we're patient founded. We can afford to care about the patient because we don't have revenue targets like that. So we're sponsored or capitalized by some of the Northern Europe's most wealthy families, and they just want to do good. So we're one of the few companies that can afford to really think about what's good for patients. So we're building this. Like the core of what we're building is really the community. That's the big value we bring to patients. Being able to capture data, being able to work with pharma companies, for example, that's just a bonus. It's a win-win-win situation that arose when we built this community. It's not something we had in mind when we started off. So we built this community with a pure idea in mind, just to help patients. We had no idea how to fund this. We had no idea how we would live out of this. We didn't build this as a company at first. That just sort of came to us. So hopefully that answered your question, even if I didn't hear it.
Do we have time for another one?
Yeah, go on.
And we try it with the internet. I was actually wondering, you said you also offer content to the people on your platform. Who is creating the content, or is it done by all the members on the platform?
We offer insights. So we work together with professionals around the world to spark ideas, to spark conversation on the platform. One thing that is super important to us is that we're not an institution that tells our members what is right and what is wrong, but we can give them ideas of what could be done. So as an example, one thing that is super clear to us, that is not so clear in the society that we live in, is that patients that feel mentally sort of ill from cancer can actually do something about their own situation. So we help our members understand that they're in control of their own situation, and that most patients could actually take action to feel better themselves. You don't have to wait around to be diagnosed with a mental health issue to get sort of appointed as a psychologist. That's when it has gone a bit too far, in my opinion. We try to give our patients insights into the different avenues of improving your life without telling them what is right and what is wrong. So we try to empower patients in that sense. I can just mention a few other things that we're building as well. Together with Microsoft, we're building a clinical trial finder that enables patients to find everything that is available on clinicaltrials.gov by just answering a few questions. So we're building perhaps one of the most valuable marketplaces when it comes to connecting patients to clinical trials, because we know which patients are looking for clinical trials. We know where they're located. We know their diagnosis, when they were diagnosed, their different lines of treatment, what worked, what didn't work. And we also know their answers to inclusion and exclusion criteria. Just as an example of something else that we're building at the same time. Sorry, that was a part of the pitch that I made as an answer.
Sebastian, I still am not quite sure that I understood the answer to Anne-Catherine's question. Who is creating the content on the platform? Are doctors creating the content?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, so I would say to 99%, the content on the platform is produced by our members. So we don't want to be an institution. We work together with professionals to spark conversation, to start conversation. But 99.9% of the conversation is done by our members. So they help each other. So again, we're not an institution that tells people what is right and what is wrong. We join people together so that they can learn from each other. Because most questions that patients have, healthcare, pharma, insurance, and their social circle are not equipped to answer. So they need to find someone with relevant experience, and that's what we're giving them.
How are you ensuring that the advice and content other patients are sharing?
Could you
How are you ensuring that content and advice patients are sharing to other patients on the platform is correct? And because it's can be very dangerous to share medical advice if you're not a doctor yourself.
Absolutely. First of all, I would like to highlight the fact that what most patients are asking other patients of is, how do I take care of my family? How am I going to go through this financially? It's not about, is this drug good or is it bad? It's not about treatments. Most patients, I would say, argue they trust healthcare systems, they trust pharma with providing the drugs that they are given. But you have to remember, most patients today survive, but surviving is not the only goal. It's what they're surviving to. So the questions that patients ask each other is, how am I going to take care of my kids while undergoing 3 years of chemo? How am I going to get back my career when I haven't been able to work for 2 years? What happens when my insurance company tells me that I'm not sick enough to not work? That is the most important questions that patients have today, that pharma, that healthcare, that even insurance companies are not equipped to answer. So that's why patients come to us. How we sort of moderate the content on War on Cancer is a different question. So we live in an era in a society where there are trolls everywhere. There's no way of escaping that. They are absolutely everywhere in abundance. What we have enabled our members to do is flag other members, flag content, and we have a whole team working with this, sort of removing content that could be very damaging, but we're very much for free speech as well. Most of the content, there's very little content where people are suggesting this is like you should eat citrus fruits for the rest of your life. Like that is not the content that we want to have, and that is fortunately not what the vast majority of content entails. But again, so sort of a side question, like a flip side of that question is, how do you moderate such things in a patient group, like a patient organization, where most people are not equipped to answer those questions either? It's a tricky question, and it's something that needs to be dealt with. But we enable patients to, our goal is to enable patients to critically think about what is being shared. That's our responsibility.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the pitch, Sebastian, and thank you for the questions from the juries. So now I think we can go forward with the Q&A from the audience. And I think, Sebastian, it's going to be again to you that we have a couple of questions. So specifically for you, why are you focusing only on pharmaceutical companies for War on Cancer?
Yeah, so why we're focusing. So yeah, first of all, we're not focusing only on pharmaceutical companies. We're actually helping healthcare systems and healthcare providers around the world. So The first client we had, which we did a study for, was the Karolinska Institute, the world's or Sweden's biggest hospital, right? So they actually came to us asking, we're interested in understanding how do patients sort of experience the pandemic and in relation to their access to healthcare. So it was mind-boggling to me that a healthcare institution asked us to give them insights into how patients experience this. But this is obviously the reason we exist, because healthcare institutions, pharma companies are not the best in the world when it comes to understand what patients need and what they want. So we don't only focus on pharma companies, but we focus on the stakeholders in a cancer patient's life, because we want to help them improve their value proposition to patients. So we focus on pharma companies. We focus on CROs, of course, as well. We focus on insurance companies because they're a major stakeholder in the cancer patient's life. How can they deliver better service to cancer patients? And we also focus on healthcare institutions and helping society at large understand what cancer is about, so that patients can be treated as persons and not only as victims. So it's not only pharmaceutical companies, even though that's a big part of what we do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And the second question for you is, what is the incentive for patients? And I assume it's, what is the incentive for patients to be part of your platform?
Yeah. So this is an interesting part. So I think the whole industry is biased by some obscure idea that patients don't want to contribute to the better of every other patient, which is completely wrong. So the incentive we give to patients is that you can work together with War on Cancer and with Bayer, and with your insights, we can provide better drugs, better efficiency, hopefully in the future, better treatment outcomes to patients in your situation. Who on our planet would not want to contribute to that? That is the incentive. The incentive is to be able to contribute, and doing that, feeling purpose and find meaning with what you're going through. Whilst most others give sort of Amazon checks, you can buy a movie on Amazon, for example. What kind of an incentive is that? We help people feel good about themselves. And the beauty of it is that if it's not incentive enough, they just don't take part of the survey.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, I think we don't have any more questions about the audience. We'll still maybe wait for 1 minute to see if we have any last question. Also, if any of the juries have questions, don't hesitate for last ones. Let's see. Well, I think we don't have any further questions. So I would like to thank the jury members who volunteered their time, as well as the startups who pitched. Very great job, really interesting startups. It was really nice to hear about all of those ideas and all of those companies. And I would also like to thank everyone who attended, and I hope you enjoyed the event. So we will also announce the Pitch Club winners next week. So stay tuned if you're interested, and we will post this on our social media. About future events, we'll be attending the health conference in November in Las Vegas. So if you're attending it as well, don't hesitate to meet us at our pavilion, and we will be also with our alumni companies. Once again, thank you all, and have a great rest of the week.